And here we go.
What's up, everybody? What's up? Gotcha. He's back. He's back. Welcome into the Lone Gunman Podcast. It is Triple B and Joe B here with you. Welcome back, Joe. How you feeling, buddy?
I'm doing okay. As some people know, I've been dealing with some health issues, nothing super serious, so don't get worried. But just want to thank a couple people. First of all, the members that have reached out to me, chatted with me, phone called with me, to you who has carried the show on your nice, broad, big shoulders. I think that's 3 B's.
Let's hold it up.
And to some of the guests, it was kind of like a hybrid guest month with Matt Dowdett, Doug, of course, and Bill Brown. So that's cool. And yeah, all is well, man. I mean, oof, what a journey this was. You go away for a week in a foreign country, you don't know the language. It's okay in like a touristy or semi-touristy area. You go away for 5, almost 6 weeks. It's a mind trip, man. It's weird. I didn't meet my first American until 3 weeks into it. I have some good stories up and some good pictures. Maybe I'll save that for members only. Well, we will save that for members only. But I'm definitely happy to be back. Spent 3.5 weeks in kind of the mountains of the Amalfi Coast in Ravello. Then my aunt came to visit me, which was very nice of her, and we watched USA Hockey win gold medal, which was very cool. Then went to Napoli, which is kind of like New York City. It's kind of like a little, it's a big city, but like a little like ghetto, not as nice. Stayed at the same hotel The Sopranos did in season 2 when they visited Italy, and this was unplanned. My aunt booked it before I knew, which I of course, got a kick out of. Then ended up training up to Venice to meet the girlfriend, and that city is also a mindfuck with the fucking canals and the water and all this is like greenish tint. I don't know, man. This world is a crazy world, and this is like my home country, But I survived. I am back, better than ever, allegedly. And yeah, man, it's wasn't exactly what I expected it to be, the trip, but it was one for the books, I would say.
An experience.
It was definitely an experience.
All right, Joe, let's welcome in some folks. South to West gets the gold medal.
He's been getting a lot of medals recently.
Yeah. Mr. P. Saunders in with the silver. Welcome back, Joe.
Thank you, sir.
Tiny bringing up the rear with the bronze. Woohoo. Let's see. We got Steve-O up in here. He says he's in. Welcome in, Steve-O. Mr. John Nolan. No more lone nutters on the show, please. Well, look, it's every once in a while, Okay, every once in a while you got to spice things up a little bit. Don't you worry,
Yeah, it's good once in a while, and
But you
it's
can
like
change your mind. You don't have to. Okay, I just want to see how these guys think.
right.
Makes for an interesting show.
Couple times a year, it's not a big deal.
Jack, JT, Jack Taylor in the house.
Oh,
The D-Dub, Derek Ward, is Friday night. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
E-Dubs.
Paul Vines, PSV Odyssey, driving and listening. Good. Good, good, good. As long as you're not watching and listening while you're driving. Trey, way back, listening here in Northwest Louisiana, a.k.a. Shreveport. Toops from down under. Should have waited for Double B to return and do a massive welcome back episode. Yeah, well, I don't know when Lent's over. I think it's not until like the first or second week of April. So it'd been a while.
Yeah, after Easter, which is the 5th of April, I believe.
Oh, shit, the prodigal son returns. Alpha 66, Big Mike. Been a while, sir. Glad you are still 6 feet above the grass, lean. We were worried about you, my friend. Big Tone, Tony Holman. Thank God it's Friday. You goddamn right, sir. Scott, hello, Scott. Wearing my free Ruby t-shirt in honor of Joe's return. Oh,
Thank you, Scott.
I'm sure Ruby was thrilled to see Joe back.
Yeah, she was.
Who's this motherfucker?
Yeah, she was very confused.
She became very attached to your girlfriend while you were gone.
Yeah, and my dad and yeah.
Asteroid coming. Welcome in, welcome in. Nightmare on Elm Street, a.k.a.
Yeah. Right, wasn't your last show Friday the 13th, I believe? Yeah.
We had 2 Friday the 13th in a row, one in February and one in March.
Oof.
Mike the Library Man made it in.
Mike.
Awesome. Anne from Peach Sisters Kitchen is in the house. She is so glad you're back, Joe.
Thank you, Peaches. Love you.
Zendar up in the house. Zendar, hello. Howdy all. Hello. Let's see. Who else we got, man? We got a packed house in here. Sally, there she is. Hello, Sally.
Hey, Sally.
Oh. Sending love to Trey.
AI Joe did look pretty good, I have to say. I was going to shave, but I was like, I can't because AI Joe didn't shave. So
Yeah. Paulinici.
Hey, Paul.
Jolene. Hello, everybody. Derek Schwindeman. Hello, Robin Joe. I'm one of the few Joe that knows how to say his name correctly. James Smith up in the house. The man with the average name. A.K.A. Banksy, if you will. No, I'm joking. Timothy Ryan makes it in. If the fucking comment will show. What's up, Robin Joey? Good to see the band back together. There we go.
Yeah.
Oh, speak of the devil, and he shall appear. Matt Douthit. No way he's back. That's right. Joe is back. See, you missed a good show with Matt, Joe.
I did, and I'm sorry because I love Matt, and we hung out a bit at Lancer, and happy to call him a friend for sure.
Morgan McKinley in his house. Newest member. Welcome in, Morgan.
Morgan.
Will. What's up, Will? GP Ideal. Appreciate the diversity of TLG. Yes. white, black, Democrat, Republican, no nutter, conspiracy theorists, all are welcome here in the house of our Lord.
Yes.
I think, oh shit, Claude and Aunt Udine slide in at the very last minute here. Sipping some Lone Stars on the beach in Galveston. That sounds like a damn good time to me, Claude. Hell yeah. So welcome in, everybody. Without further ado, do I still have that soundbite here? Yeah. Le croissant. Joe, let's get into a little bit about what we're going to be talking about here this evening, if you will, please, sir.
Okay, so we were recently sent, as in recently being a month or two ago, or maybe longer. Time has flown by. Almost 200-page document on James Herbert Martin. Of course, getting back to our origins, if you will. And we figured, since it's been, we've touched on him here and there in a couple segments, but it's been over 3 years, I think, Rob, since we've done a show on him. We like to call him Marina's forgotten babysitter, because you think of Ruth Payne, George Morensfield, etc. And we found a little. We're going to do a little bit of a recap on who he was. Our initial finds on him and his wife Wanda, and a couple little tidbits of things in this document that we found interesting. And yeah, the hat is badass for sure.
What's up, Douglas? Campbell's in the house.
So I figured it would be an appropriate topic for my return, and we're going to kind of take a different angle on it this time, because I believe the last show we did, Rob, it was more of a deep dive on James Herbert Martin and his work history, and where he was and why his name is on the SS Mazdan manifest, and et cetera, et cetera. But tonight I think we're going to just focus on their personal relationship, which is what this document really focused on. And we can kind of figure out if, usually it's the guy that gets honeypotted, right? In theory. Sometimes. Was Marina honeypotted by James Herbert Martin, and by extension
honey dicked,
honey dipped, honey trapped,
dick,
honey dicked?
Yes.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, it's a real thing. Look it up.
Okay, I did not know this. And yeah, I figured we'd take a little different angle on it and kind of explore their relationship, and through a little more than 2 months that they had together. Of course, first as a business manager, meeting at the Six Flags Inn in DC, where she was taken, and Robert and Marguerite the night Oswald was shot and killed, or maybe the afternoon, and see if we can kind of hash some things out. What do you think about that, Rob?
All right, Joseph, let's do it.
All right. Let's get the PP up. PowerPoint.
Oh,
no.
All right, sorry. That PP.
It's okay.
Is this the PP
Yes. Yes. So let me just make sure. Okay, yes. So this is obviously a picture of James Herbert Martin right here. A serious, spooky-looking dude escorting Marina into the Warren Commission hearings. And I believe she did 2 days. They flew there February 2nd, and I believe they left on the 7th or 8th. So they had like about a week there. And there were times Jim was looking after June, Rachel, the youngest daughter of Leah Marina, was in the care of James Herbert Martin's wife, which we'll get into. Quick recap, just for people that didn't catch our episode 3+ years ago. James Herbert Martin was Marina's business manager and, quote, agent. He was Jim, as he was commonly known, worked at the Six Flags Inn in Dallas, where the Secret Service took the Oswald family. After inviting the Oswald family to Thanksgiving dinner, he was generous enough to offer Marina and her 2 infant daughters to stay with his family in their house, along with Wanda and their 3 kids, 2 14, 12-year-old boys, and a 6-year-old daughter. So that, obviously, as we touched on in the past, is a little sus, because if you have 3 kids in the house, it's kind of hectic. And then you're going to invite the alleged assassin of the president's wife and their 2 daughters into your house. It's created some drama, as we're about to see in a little bit. And they moved into the Martin home on November 29th, 1963, only 5 days after Lee was murdered. This was one of our big finds initially. A couple days after they moved in, on December 3rd, there was a straight line installed to White House Communications Building number 25, D.C. Very sus. And this was handwritten on description of who Wanda and James Herbert Martin were from the DPD intelligence unit. Then, of course, the Die Circuit document, which Rob is credited on the Mary Ferrell Foundation for finding. And ironically, this version is much clearer, Rob, than the one we had previously showcased. Somehow the Research Industrial Complex contacted the archives and got a very clear copy of this. Not your not your typical wife. Rob, help me out here with this.
Frank explained
that
the selection, or I don't know, and use of the something had been precedingly I don't know, and agreed to in the who knows? Sue is completely
divorced
from the situation by herself as a wire intercept. I think you could build a case either way. Remaining the case from the everyday type something wife would something in this instance.
But wire intercept underlined is what we want to kind of focus on, because obviously,
the wire intercept is something unique, to the CIA. It's monitoring of communications, namely electronic or telephonic. So basically, you have these wire intercepts. There could be housewives who have nothing else to do, that can monitor communications, translate in real time things, and get the word out. If anything is being said, anything special is being said. Generally, there are targets to be monitored by these wire intercepts. It's not just like they're listening to Ethel and Lucy talk on the phone, about nothing for an hour. Generally, there are targets, highly sought after targets. People's phones are tapped, and they're listening in and trying to figure out if there's anything being said that could be used for intelligence purposes. And that's what they forward it. If they find anything, they forward it. And it's something that, as long as, for instance, if they're monitoring Russia, somebody in Russia, somebody would obviously have to know Russian to translate, and pretty good, to understand dialects and to translate in real time as stuff's being said, that type of thing. Or, if it's German or French or whatever, that person would have to know that language. Unfortunately, we don't know if Wanda knew any foreign languages. We know she went to high school. We don't know if she went to college before meeting James Herbert Martin. Because if she did, we might be able to run down a yearbook that would tell us, if she actually was taking any foreign language classes or in some kind of club or whatever that would give us a clue. But yeah, no.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and you have to take into context this is, give or take a week after the assassination.
Thank you, John.
No, thank you, John. They might still be trying to tie this back to the commies, right? Whether it be Cuba or Russia. I mean, they really didn't know, but if you put into perspective what they were going through, kind of the peak of the Cold War, you would kind of take these measures, right?
Comment of the night for Scott.
Oh, yeah.
Not sure, but Martin was fluent in the Russian tongue. Yes, he was. Oh, Lord have mercy. I love it. Hey, Joe, have you ever heard of? I heard about something today I never heard of before. Have you ever heard of vabbing?
Vabbing?
Yeah,
I have not. Please enlighten me, sir.
I hadn't either until today. Apparently, ladies, cover your ears, but they might know what it is already. But apparently, it's when women will touch themselves down yonder and then dab it on like perfume so that they smell like their natural pheromones.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought so. I mean, I'm still this old and learning stuff new every day. Vabbing.
We're getting old, bro. Oh, man. All right. Let's get this back up as we go to the third page of the die circuit document. All right. And this is maybe the most interesting thing. It comes from Chief of Base Berlin, and you have to remember there's still the Berlin Wall at this point, right? So this would be the most, I guess you would say, easterly base, or closest to the Red Wall or whatever they called it, right? Engagement of spouse of redacted but written over James Martin, and that does not look like Wanda's Martin's name. But
Where? That says contract agent.
oh, okay. So
Contact agent something.
yeah, it does. It's exactly what it says. Good job. The subject individual has been engaged under oral contract for use under Project Die Circuit. And if you remember...
Quick, Joe, real quick.
Yep.
Let's jump in here. So we run this by the swinging his dick of them all, Bill Simpich, because he knows a lot about, these CIA cryptograms and things like that. Well, DI is the prefix for Czechoslovakia, right? And it's only found in one other document that we know of. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
My argument to this being having anything to do with Czechoslovakia, this is from Chief of Base Berlin, which is Germany. Okay. We know
Mm-hmm.
that the Martins were not in Russia. Okay. They were likely somewhere in Europe. And I look at it like this, right? It's a project designation, kind of like MK Ultra, QK Enchant, something like that, rather than a country designation. This is a project. It is a project that they are undertaking, right? Like QK Enchant, right? That was a project where they would interview returning business people, important, business people who had been traveling abroad and debrief them when they returned, to see if they could gather any intelligence. And this Project Die Circuit could have been a wire intercept project, okay, with multiple stations around Europe aimed at, electronically and telephonically monitoring targets. And I'll die on that hill. I don't think this has anything to do with Czechoslovakia. But pray continue.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, Rob, when we spoke to Larry Hancock about this in a lot of detail, he said the only direct line to the White House would have been a federal lease line circuit. So if you were trying to kind of hide this operation in a sense, why not give it some random prefix?
Yeah, and it vaguely alludes to a telephone line circuit without saying telephone.
Right.
It was likely the project designation was DI as a whole. This part of the project is circuit, DI circuit. There might have been other components to the project that were, it could have been like DI Dingleberry, or whatever,
Right.
that stood for something else within the project. But as a whole, it's a DI circuit.
Yeah, or even Rob trying to throw off people in terms of they're not supposed to be operating domestically, right? So why not give it a foreign prefix?
Well, this is foreign, Joe. This is
No,
foreign.
I'm saying that's why you would give it that.
What do you
Maybe,
mean?
I don't know. I'm saying to um,
I mean, a wire intercept project. If they're working abroad, we know the Martins could have technically been in Europe, right? And under a project, you don't just have one person monitoring a phone line, right? You're gonna have multiple people monitoring multiple targets under an umbrella, and then reporting up. You see what I'm saying? They're not just monitoring one person.
Right. I'm saying by putting the Czechoslovakian prefix on it makes it seem like they're not.
Stop saying Czechoslovakian prefix.
Okay.
Any fucking thing whatsoever to do with this document.
Okay.
Period.
Well,
I'll die on that hill.
okay. The effective date of the oral contract is June 15th, 1954, and shall continue thereafter until the termination of redacted tour of duty at, what is it? Something of base.
BOB,
Bob.
base of Berlin.
Yeah. So this is an extension of the contract in June of 64, I'm sorry. which means that there was a contract before that, which would have covered the time that Marina was living in the Martin home.
Well, where do you see that? Where do you
The
see that
subject,
64 date is the extension?
the subject individual has been engaged under oral contract for the use under Project Dive Circuit. The effective date of the oral contract is June 15th, 1954, and shall continue thereafter. So they might be backdating it, actually.
Well, here's my thought process on this. Okay, so
Okay.
June 15th, 1964. Okay. So we know by this time the Warren Commission is still technically going on. They're still questioning people, but for the Martins and Marina, life has moved on at this point. And spoiler alert, James Herbert Martin was banging Marina while they were in D.C. during the time she's giving her Warren Commission stuff, right?
Yes.
And for whatever reason, was it Martin or Marina that called Wanda and told her? I think it was Marina.
It was Marina that insisted that she called Wanda, but both were on the phone.
Yeah. So, you have Wanda Martin, Mrs. James Herbert Martin, finding out that her husband is in love with another woman and has cheated on her. And they have three or four kids together?
Three kids. Yeah.
They have 3 kids together. So, you might figure, okay, this is in February. All right. So they go back. Marina moves out of the house, gets her own place, and life goes on. But for the Martins, you got to figure, okay, they're going to be arguing, right? Maybe they talked and maybe they try to move past it, but you know how these things go, Joe.
Yeah.
Stuff always gets thrown up in your face. You can't come home late from work, or guess what? You're cheating on me still. Now. So by June of 64, Wanda may likely have had enough of James Herbert Martin's bullshit and is ready to kind of distance herself from him, which does end up happening officially, at least that we know of later. At least as of 1967, they weren't together.
Right.
But I think the date there supports our, it's right in line with how we're thinking here about this whole thing. But go ahead.
Yeah. And we'll get to a couple documents later that might shed some more context on this. But the rest is pretty much financial. Subject will be paid $50 a month. They'll issue a form 1099 to the spouse for showing Odebex, I think it says, as a source of payment, as in they're probably going through a shell company, right?
Yeah.
For the tax year 1964, blah, blah, blah. Salary did not exceed $400, which is, thousands of dollars. Subject individual will report income, blah, blah, blah. No quarters and or substance provisions are applicable in the case of subject individual. No operational expenses will be insured by subject individual. No commitments other than those stated above have been made to the subject. Signed, what is it, Lola K. Furlong?
K. Furlong.
Yeah, field contracting officer. So this was one released that Rob and I found right in the middle of our research in 2023. And those releases. So that's pretty interesting.
And just to back up a second, to be a little more clear about this timeline, what we're thinking is that somewhere while the Oswalds are in Russia, right, which is 59 to 62, yeah, at some point there, James Herbert Martin goes to work for a credit card company for Hilton Hotels. And Hilton Hotels has places all over the world. And they were the first, basically the first credit card out there. And, to sell credit cards to customers, you need a salesperson. And likely would have been stationed, Hilton had hotels in all the big swinging dick cities in Europe. And not just all over the world. But
it's
it might have been a
great cover for travel. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're what you call assets in place, right? They're there in case something happens. Maybe they're doing something else. Who knows? Maybe they're playing wire, or maybe she's playing wire intercept back then. Who knows? While she's a housewife. But as soon as the Oswalds leave Russia, we have a James Herbert Martin and a party of 5, which is a wife and 3 kids, returning on the same ship that the Oswalds returned to America on, which to me is sus. All right, I believe in coincidences sometimes, but that's a little too much. Okay?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's likely they realized the Oswalds were coming back to America. They wanted somebody to follow them back to America and keep an eye on them, report back type of thing. And it just so happened that, they were from the same area as Lee Oswald's family, in Texas, around the Fort Worth, Dallas area. So while you might be thinking, boy, this might be a stretch, but we'll get there, I promise. If it was just one thing, maybe. But, I think we built a hell of a case on this a couple years ago, and, we're painting it back for you now. So, Joe, go ahead.
Okay. Then, of course, I'm just going to give a little background as we do our little recap here on John Martin Thorne, who was the lawyer in Texas who represented Marina during her Warren Commission testimony, who was referred to by none other than James Herbert Martin. And he has a little bit of a sus history as well. He tried to apply as a special agent to the FBI. He was recommended unfavorable. He received some type of law degree, SMU, 1951. And one of the reasons, I guess, he was denied was because a personal confidential informant advised on March 1958 that 2 males and 2 females had appeared at a tourist court. And this is interesting wording here, because we're thinking Six Flags Inn, and had taken about 3 reels of film from a car and into the tourist cabin. The PCI believes that these persons were showing these films and possibly making other films, aka porn. PCI said this person, John Martin Thorne, comes to the tourist courts on average of 2 or 3 times a week. Not 2 or 3 times a month or a year, 2 or 3 times a week, right?
Big Bush 1950s porn.
And I'm going to forward here to James Herbert Martin's Warren Commission testimony. They asked him, how did you know John Martin Thorne? I had known him from an association at the inn. Had he ever acted as your attorney? No. What was the nature of your acquaintance with him? Just passing. Of course, he says that. Did you discuss with Marina the qualifications of this attorney? No. Did you say anything about it to Mr. Gapadze, which was the Secret Service agent that could speak Russian? That was kind of detailed to their security detail. I probably mentioned John had handled some movie work and that he would probably know something about the area in which we were talking. After you had made that suggestion of Mr. Thorne as a lawyer, did you do anything about it? I called him. So, again, it kind of lines up. And as we're going to kind of get into, was this a possible, blackmail operation just in case Marina didn't buck like they wanted her to and indict Lee like she ended up doing in the Warren Commission? You got to wonder, man. There's a lot here. There's a lot going on. And the drama...
Fast forward to February 1964 when they're actually banging at the Waldorf in D.C. It's not just James Herbert Martin. Thorne is right there too. Like as soon as the Secret Service pulled up their tent stakes and left, they both moved into the room. If you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
Add a little vodka. Thorne pulls out his home movie camera, and bang, bang, boom! Instantly, you've got blackmail.
Yes. And Rob, I don't think much has changed since, if you think about Epstein and such.
Yeah, may have been the first Epstein.
So this is a document I don't think we've read, and this is February 19th. So this is about a week after Marina gets back to Dallas from D.C. She is giving the FBI a statement about the details of what happened in this whole quagmire type of thing. I, Marina Oswald, give the following voluntary statement, to Boguslav and Heitman, whom I know to be special agents of the FBI, Dallas, Texas, on about November 25th, 63, that would be that Monday, while I was residing at the Inn of the Six Flags, Arlington, and sorry for the red here, this is not my red, this is, I guess, an attempt at redacting. Under the security of the U.S. Secret Service, I was told by one of the Secret Service agents that James Herbert Martin, who I know as Jim Martin, had invited me and my two daughters to reside at his home as guests. I was invited to the Martin home for Thanksgiving dinner, and I accepted this invitation. I had seen Jim Martin at the time at Six Flags, and at first thought he had something to do with cleaning up the room. About 2 weeks after I moved, she got that wrong, about a week after, but we'll excuse me. Sorry?
Why are you taking my panties?
I was told by Special Agent Gapadze, U.S. Secret Service, that Martin had advised that I needed an attorney. So the Secret Service is kind of coordinating this, which is interesting, and especially when you consider their abrupt...
Well, I think they're brokering. You see, Special Agent U.S. Secret Service said that Martin had advised that I needed an attorney. So they're just basically telling Marina what Martin is telling them. So he's orchestrating it, make no bones about it. He's just basically running it by the Secret Service first, and kind of interjecting some ideas into the equation that might sound good. That Marina probably should really have a lawyer. I know a guy, type of thing.
Yeah. A good friend named Thorne, of course, John Martin Thorne, we went over him, who was an attorney at the same time. Gapadze, who speaks Russian, told me for Martin I needed a business manager too. So, They're doing a little bit of coordination or referring. Maybe that's a better word.
She's got a lot of money coming in. She's got a lot of offers coming in for books, movie rights, all kinds of interview requests, all this. She did need a business manager. Unfortunately,
Yes.
for her, this was the wrong guy for the job.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the Scafusa. I suggested that one of my Russian-speaking friends in Dallas would be a good business manager. Martin asked through Kapads if it would be agreeable if he served as my business manager, and I said that it would be okay. This is Marina. I had not requested Martin to be my manager because I thought he was working at a steady job and would not have the time. This is a long document and statement by her, so this is clipping different statements, the relevant ones. Mr. Martin and his wife Wanda went to a New Year's Eve party and returned about 1 a.m. January 1st, 64.
All
And the
liquor.
president, yeah, he was drunk as fuck. In the presence of Wanda, Martin asked me if he would give me a New Year's kiss, and I refused. Later on that date,
Watch this. I'm gonna kiss the Russian girl. Hey, come here, Marina. Come here, baby. Give me a big old wet liquor kiss.
later on that date, which would have been that morning of January 1st, 64, Martin caught me in the hallway when I went to attend to one of my children and told me he loved me and then kissed me.
And grabbed her by. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joe.
I would hope.
You trumped her.
He grabbed her by the you know what. About Saturday.
I'm in love with you, baby.
About Saturday, January 4th, Jim invited to have dinner with him at La Tunisa restaurant in Dallas, and I accepted. I guess that's Mexican. He explained to his wife that I needed to relax. Well, you don't think it's Mexican?
I think more Mediterranean, La Tunisia.
Okay, fair enough. We went alone and sat at a booth alone at the restaurant. Two Secret Service agents sat at a table nearby. Like we mentioned, they did have a protective detail following them all around. We had shrimp cocktail, lobster, salad, and very good wine. Again, specifics.
A very good, expensive meal.
Yeah. At this restaurant, he professed his love for me again, and he kept doing this throughout January. And we're going to get into some of their later interactions shortly. I told Mrs. Martin that I would like to move out because I felt myself a burden, which sounds like Marina. Both Jim Martin and Wanda Martin came to me and asked me to please stay. So Rob, I'm going to stop here. Wanda Martin is already kind of sus about Jim's love for Marina. Why would she ask him to stay? Her to stay. Marina.
It would seem to me that, again, if you're looking at this through a conspiracy lens, and that the Martins were told to get close to Marina, not just on a boat this time, following him back from Europe, but now that this incident has happened in Dallas, whatever agency, CIA, would want to know exactly what the hell is going on. What does Marina know? Did Lee possibly tell her anything? If Lee was a false defector, if you will.
Right.
Of course,
Walker shooting as well.
Well, I don't think the CIA was worried about that very much, but I'm saying if he was doing something at the behest of the CIA, such as being a false defector and reporting back to them and yada yada yada, that they would not want their secrets divulged. And again, when you have a Russian woman coming back to the United States, in the middle of the Cold War, and her husband ends up shooting and killing the president, allegedly, you're in a bit of a pickle at that point. Everybody wants to know what really is going on here. Like, the official story for the public is one thing, but trust me, behind the scenes, the FBI is shitting bricks, the CIA is shitting bricks, the Dallas police are shitting bricks, the Secret Service is shitting bricks.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you want to control information that is coming out.
Yep.
And, very quickly they figure that they're doing this Warren Commission thing, that they're going to want Marina to testify to certain things. And if you have her over a barrel, figuratively, then you can control what she says. It doesn't have to be threats. Well, we'll just send you back to Russia and keep your kids here, or just, whatever. It could be more than that.
Right.
Hey, we got this movie where you're taking two and looking like you're skewered on a spit. But who knows?
Right. There's a lot. I agree with you. There's a lot going on behind the scenes here. Whatever happened there,
I think we can agree that, if the Martins were working on at the behest of somebody telling them what to do, it was the CIA. Given everything else that they're involved in, and their proximity to the Oswalds at certain times, then, I'd have to say it's the CIA that really wants to keep an eye on Marina and what she's doing and saying and all of that.
Right.
But Martin's kind of going off the reservation here. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if he's, was told to get close to Marina and, or if he really wants to bang her. Like, and of course, this behavior by Wanda that we're talking about here, I'm sure she's not having fun and all this type of thing. But, back in the early 60s, marriages were different. Life was different.
Yeah, and divorce.
Women put up with a lot more shit back then than they had to. And if she kept being convinced that, look, we're doing this for the government, yada, 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 this is for the good of the country, just, I got to do this, babe. I got to, hey, sorry, I need to stroke this chick down. It is, it's for the good of the country. It's, just a little bit longer, a little bit longer.
Yeah, you're right.
So she finally acquiesces, and here we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Martin told me it was better to reside at his house because there he could see me every day. He said if I moved and refused, I think it was something relevant after that, he wouldn't be able to see her again. Something like that.
Well, in that previous slide too, if you go back, Joe, bottom it says, Jim accused Wanda of doing something to make me want to move. I decided to stay so as not to further aggravate the situation. So, because it says both Jim and Wanda came to me and asked me to stay. And Jim accused Wanda of doing something to make me want to move. Like, maybe Wanda was running her mouth, keep your tongue out of my husband's mouth, or whatever, whatever the case may be, of being a harlot or a whore, whatever. But anyway, after all that, she decided to stay. So, yeah, go ahead.
Right. Okay. Sometimes during the period of my testimony in Washington, Secret Service agent Leon Gapods told me the font is horrible. There were rumors that Martin loved me. He said these rumors might be detrimental to me, that it might lead to my deportation from this country. So now you're wondering, like, what the hell are the Secret Service agents doing? Not to mention they, cease surveillance and let the Martins move in next door to her hotel room after her testimony.
It's not definitely not a good look after your husband was just killed and allegedly just murdered the president, that you're banging the first dude that comes along, on a shiny black horse. Uh, it's not enough to just say, okay, just because of the whole Oswald situation, we're going to deport your ass. But now you're banging a married dude, and that's a no, and it's not a good look for you either. So,
Right. Yeah. Martin replied that he had friends, and if it came to a matter of deportation, he could arrange fictitious marriage, which would forestall deportation. Interesting. What friends were those? Martin assured me that no one would know of our intimacies. On Friday, February 7th, 64, about noon, the Secret Service ceased the surveillance of me. Marina, Martin, and Thorne moved into the room which the Secret Service had occupied, which was next to Marina's room at the Willard Hotel. About 4 or 5 p.m. the same day, again, kind of some specific details here. On Friday, Jim and I went out to eat, and thereafter we walked around through the stores. Let's go shopping. Thorne had taken a picture of me earlier while I was roasting on the couch in my room.
Or resting.
Resting, I'm sorry. AKA taking a little nap, which I can agree with. I take a lot of naps. He had put his coat on the couch and his hat, a gin bottle, and a glass on the table nearby as props. Thorne took this picture with a Polaroid camera. He stated he did this for a joke. Thorne kept the picture.
That's not creepy.
No. And again, when you go back to the FBI documents from years before saying he's making movies and pictures and whatever, reels of film, it's sus. Okay? Like, you can't get more sus than this.
And what was she wearing at the time? If anything, she's just resting on the couch, I mean, it's not like she's probably fully clothed or anything.
No, she's probably like part like pajama-ish, like maybe a t-shirt or something. I don't know. I don't think she's like naked, but who knows? I mean, I'd love to see the picture, not in a creepy way, but
if you're putting props with like gin and a bottle and glass, and it's not a good look,
Right. Well, that's my whole point. Like, if, and I guess her Warren Commission testimony was done at the time, but if anything came up after, you could say, or there was any pushback on it, you could say, look at her, she was drunk, like, blah, 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 I don't know. The next day, Monday, I was taken to the doctor by Veda. This is when she's back, Robert Oswald's wife, and we stopped by the Martin house where I picked up my clothes. Martin was not there, but while I was there, he called, sus, and I talked to him on the telephone. I told him he and I and Wanda should get together to talk about the whole affair over, and his wife should know the whole truth. He agreed to come to Robert's house on Tuesday, the next day. Rob, do you think he showed up?
No.
Correct. Martin did not show up at Robert Oswald's house on Tuesday, February 11th, 64. That evening, I called Martin on the telephone. His wife was on the extension telephone. So they're both on the phone, essentially. And we had a three-way conversation. I told Martin that I was leaving or ceasing his services, I think it says, as my business manager, or ceasing closing, and as my lover. I told him he should tell Wanda everything. and Wanda said that Jim had told her everything. Wanda, and granted, they're not getting divorced for another like 12, 13 years after this. While on the telephone,
Allegedly.
allegedly, it could have
Separated.
been, yeah, reminded me of what maybe they stayed for the kids, Rob. Um,
Well, divorce was
reminded,
pretty small back then, you know? I mean, like,
yeah, you're right.
you got to
Yeah.
remember, I mean, this is February 64. We got the Die Circuit document in June of 64. And they likely weren't together by June. So ideally separated at best. Finally
Yeah.
divorced in the 70s, but definitely separated. Well, keep going here because it gets
Yeah,
into a little bit detail about this.
it kind of reminds you of like the Ruth and Michael Payne separation, and I'm using air quotes, although you might not be able to see me. You know, um,
Yeah.
reminded me of what she said in a previous conversation with me that if Jim found out another woman, she would divorce him. Wanda said she now knew that Jim loved her and still loves her and the family, and that she would not divorce him. During
So,
this conversation,
real quick, Joe. So, likely, instead of going to Robert Oswald's house to talk to Marina and then call Wanda from there, he no showed, but he knew the walls are closing in and it's time to fess up. So, at that point, he probably told Wanda everything, which she says that he did. And he probably said, "Look, you know, I still love you, and I want to be with you and the family." And she agreed at that point not to divorce him. But you know how these things go.
mm-hmm.
So once that is there, arguments will ensue afterwards. Things will be said, ugly things will be said that cannot be taken back. Things will be held over people's heads. Hence, this leads to more uh, tense conversations, and likely by June, Wanda was like, you know what? I'm out of here for a while. Do your own thing, figure it out, and maybe we'll talk later. But for now, I'm out.
Yeah, yeah. It's like the drama is indescribable that's going on when they get back from DC. During this conversation, I asked Jim, I'm sorry, why he had told me he loved me when it was not true. He replied he did not know what had happened. Okay. That he had loved two women at the same time.
Right.
So this is again Marina Oswald's statement here. On the same day, you have Chief Secret Service Inspector Thomas J. Kelly kind of doing I call it kind of a cover your ass document regarding them, because I think they were probably under some they were in some shit of why they kind of pulled surveillance off them in DC. In the early hours of November 24, 63, Special Agent James Howard requested the assistance of Sheriff Lou Evans, Tarrant County, Texas, in in securing a tape recorder and a quiet place to interview the Oswald family. So now we're going back to that Monday after Lee was shot. Sheriff Evans suggested that he meet Special Agent Howard at the Six Flags Inn, where he would furnish the sheriff's, recorder, and that Jim Martin, well known to the sheriff, Rob, would supply a room.
Yep. And this is the sheriff that Martin reached out to and said, "You can bring Marina here. It's a nice secluded spot. Nobody will know where she is." Yada yada yada. And the Secret Service went and checked it out and agreed to bring her there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So again, this whole thing about bringing Marina and the kids and everybody to Six Flags Inn was orchestrated by James Herbert Martin. Orchestrated by him.
Yes, sir. Um, Marina Oswald, Miss Marguerite Oswald, and Mr. Robert Howard and Kunkel were being driven to the Six Flags Hotel in Arlington, Texas, when the news that Lee Harvey Oswald had been shot was announced. Now that's weird. That's why were they going there before they knew? But irregardless.
Well, they had to get out of wherever they were at. I can't remember if they were. They were at the Executive Inn, but I guess the press had found out where they were and were, just
harassing them,
harassing the shit out of them, or trying to harass the shit out of them. But yeah.
Just a lot of these moving parts are very sus to me. After the family had viewed Lee's body and made funeral arrangements, special agents Howard and Kunkel were instructed by me to take the Oswald family to a safe place for their protection. I left the selection of the site to them since I was unfamiliar with the Dallas area, and they decided, in view of the prior cooperative attitude of Mr. James Herbert Martin and his discretion in previous contacts with Sheriff Evans, that's an interesting little sentence, to return to the Six Flags Motel, where the Oswald family remained under protection until November. I believe that's an 8, although it's cut off. It looks like a 3. Doesn't make sense. It would be 23. 63. So I clipped a... Go ahead.
Just real quick. So the Secret Service left the room about noon, February 7th, after Marina had testified to the Warren Commission, and they were done, right?
Yeah.
If you think for a second that room wasn't wired for sound
or video,
or video, you are sorely mistaken. Because whether it was a Secret Service or more likely the FBI, okay, the FBI had no qualms about tapping hotel rooms. I'm just saying they likely knew what happened in that hotel room that night, which is why, we have some of these documents that we have and some of the concerns that they have.
Yeah. And Robert Oswald knew the day after they got back, the morning he showed up. I think he showed up at 10 a.m. I think it might be in my further PowerPoint here. So he knew. Someone told him. He stayed with them for Robert and Veda for like a night or two, and then went to the Fords. So a lot of things happening here. In his home around the clock, that is, if Mrs. Oswald's presence became known to the neighborhood, there could possibly be an adverse reaction. This is talking about when he takes him in. Let me see. Some of this might be irrelevant.
They likely shuttled her. He likely shuttled her in there under the cover of darkness, and of course wouldn't tell anybody that she was there. But of course there was a presence. Dallas Police, Secret Service, posing as workers and other things undercover.
Yeah.
To watch the house, the Martin household, after Marina's moved and her kids are moved in there. So.
Yes, they did have a 24-hour shift. I don't know if they were sitting in a car outside of the house or down the street, but they were under surveillance 100%. Marina was, at least. Let's see. He stated that he advised Mrs. Marina Oswald to accept Mr. Martin's invitation, blah, blah, blah. Robert further stated that he was anxious to return to his own family in Denton, Texas, and would be unable to stay with Marina any longer. We're talking about Six Flags here. When the President's Committee on the Assassination of President Kennedy decided upon a date for Marina Oswald's appearance, they notified me, and arrangements were made to bring Mrs. Oswald to Washington on February 2nd, 64 for a 10 a.m. appearance before the commission. That's one of the pictures I believe in the first of the PowerPoint. I was informed by Mr. Rankin that Mr. Jim Martin and Thorne would be accompanying Mrs. Oswald and her 2 children. This later information was changed to reflect that only the older daughter, June, would come to Washington, and that the infant would remain in the Martin residence in the care of Mrs. Wanda Martin, which is interesting.
Yeah, because they don't mention anything about June when they're talking about what went down in the Waldorf hotel room. They don't really mention anything about June.
The Willard, yeah.
The Willard.
Yeah, and it's just kind of like a weird, maybe like not appropriate thought, but when they did have sexual relations at the Willard, was June in the room in her crib? I don't see another scenario where she wasn't.
Creepy John Martin Thorne was watching the.
Oh my God!
I mean,
either way, it's horrible to think about, right?
Yes, horrific.
Oh my God. Special Agent of Secret Service Capods later told me that Marina Oswald told him she felt that Jim Martin was falling in love with her. This was before, and that he had some domestic difficulty before she came to live with the Martins, but she felt it had been straightened out since she was there. So, I'm having difficulty with my wife, so I'm going to invite a pretty hot young woman to live with us, and that has been straightened out. Makes no sense to me from a relationship standpoint. If I told my girlfriend, hey, like, I'm gonna have some 22-year-old girl, like, move in with her 2 kids, like, imagine the reaction there.
Yeah, the only way you would get away with it is if it was literally undercover work for the government. You know what I mean? Like, that's your only saving grace.
That's your only play.
That's all you got. Other than that, it just seems like the wife would just not go along with that plan. You know what I'm saying?
Right. There's no way a wife, even in the 60s, would go along with that.
No.
Like, it's and the accused assassin of the president's wife to boot, right? Like, and they have 3 kids and they want 2 more.
Yeah, like, imagine the conversation that goes on. Look, babe, I know this doesn't seem right, but look, we can bilk this chick for a lot of money, blah blah blah. Or, this is what we're being asked to do by, our government.
Right. That's the other pitch. That's the other pitch, Rob. That's the other pitch, Rob, is the money aspect, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, money doesn't buy you happiness. Money is the root of all evil. And if that was the reason, then you see why things ended the way it did. But if you look at it from the conspiracy angle that they were told to monitor and babysit Marina, and Wanda went along with it for as long as she could before it just got to her too much. It got to be too much for her. I mean, you got to imagine her being right in the middle of this. The shit's going on in her own house, in front of, and her kids are in the house. Marina's kids are in the house. This guy's grabbing all over Marina at every turn, and trying to kiss on her and all this stuff. And it's just not good, man. Not good.
Yeah. And there's the woman intuition, right? Which is pretty strong, right? You kind of would get that vibe.
Oh yeah, and you even
Like,
have documents saying where Wanda helped Marina cut her hair and change her appearance so that she wouldn't be recognized in public so much. That's why she cut all her hair off, and started wearing makeup or whatever, or differently, or whatever the case may be. So you can see Wanda kind of trying to get close to her as well at certain points, but my guess is that things just got out of hand and too much to handle for her, to be
yeah,
like,
yeah,
this is enough, okay.
yeah. Enough of this. Uh, she Marina said that Jim Martin had told her she should buy a small house in Dallas and that perhaps someday they could be married, aka be my Gumar for a little bit. Special Agent Kapods said he told her that she was playing a very dangerous game and that if she got mixed up in a divorce suit, she might find herself in trouble with the immigration authorities.
Yep, hence banging a married dude.
Yeah. We have a letter from J. Lee Rankin to J. Hoover. This is covering all this drama in a sense. This will acknowledge receipt of your letter dated February 17th. So this is a few days after, advising the commission regarding the information recently furnished by Robert Oswald through a bureau confidential source, particularly that Marina Oswald was forcibly made to have intercourse with her business manager, James Herbert Martin, sometime during her recent stay in Washington, when she testified before the commission. So now you have Robert saying it's kind of like our, yeah, thanks. And again, Robert Oswald, I think, has different motivations than everyone else.
Or Marina may have been embarrassed and she told him that.
Well, in her statement that I didn't clip above, she said that it was consensual.
Right, but I'm
So
saying she might have told Robert, look,
yeah, to
I did not
yeah,
want to do it, but he made me,
yeah. No, that's very plausible. You're right,
She
sir.
might be banging him too, for all we know.
Yeah.
There
that
are
would
allegations.
that would be something, huh? I would appreciate very much if you would have your bureau take an appropriate investigation of the matter in the effort to develop the full circumstances surrounding the referred to incident. So, I mean, listen, this is Rankin to Hoover. This is like big drama here, not only on the human level, on the Martin and Marina Oswald and Robert Oswald level, it's also on the national security level, because so there's a lot going on here. In the judgment of the commission, it is important to ascertain, one, whether the intercourse between Marina and Martin Oswald occurred, or Martin and Marina Oswald occurred at a time when she was under the protective surveillance of the Secret Service. Number two, whether she was in the vicinity. Wait, what was this?
Whether she was in fact forcibly
Forcibly. Thank you.
subjected to intercourse against her will.
Yes, thank you, sir. Three.
And John
When and which those assistants she decided to discuss her will? Oh, no. Yeah. When and which those assistants she decided to dismiss, I'm sorry, this is hard to read, James Martin and John Thorne from further association with her business. interest, and 4, the circumstances surrounding her taking up residence with the Declan Ford, or the Fords. So, whew,
And again,
drama.
in December of '63, she's accused of banging Hugh Ainsworth as well. So, is Marina just an innocent victim, or is she handing it out all over town type of thing?
Well, I mean, we know about her dissatisfaction on the account of the DeMora Shields of her and Lee's sexual relations, not being satisfied, all that stuff. So,
Little prick. He lasts 2 minutes, 2 pump dump.
Then we have, this is the same date. Interesting title, Rob. Lee Harvey Oswald, Internal Security, Cuba. Not sure what this has to do with Cuba. We'll see.
Well, they put that heading on the FBI shit, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So they had a confidential informant at the Willard. This was like one of the managers in the lobby. On February 1964, WFT1, who was furnished reliable information in the past, advised that Marina, wife of the accused assassin, Lee, and her party stayed at the Willard Hotel, Pennsylvania Avenue and some street. WFT1 said that the Presidential Commission was billed for expenses of Mrs. Oswald until the departure of the Secret Service agents on February 7th, 64. They allegedly got together the 7th and the 8th. I believe they returned on the 9th. Her subsequent expenses of about $95 were billed to Mr. Jim Martin. His box office
is a lot of damn money for 1964 for a
hotel. Yeah, that's like over $1,000. Yeah,
somebody must have been in the mini bar a lot. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
ordering a lot of room service.
Hey, I can't blame them for room service for the minibar, but Thornton's entire expenses were billed in the same manner, so there might have even been more. Thought that was interesting, and I think I only have 1 or 2 more here. WFT1, this is the same document, said he had gained the impression from the way Mrs. Oswald looked at her business manager, Martin, that she was sweet on him. He remarked to an unrecalled Secret Service agent, of course, that Mrs. Oswald seemed to be enamored with Martin, and the latter remarked, as if in agreement, that he felt sorry for the Martin's absent wife. WFT1 said that the housekeeper who handled the suite, so this is someone in management at the hotel, and we have that document somewhere in our Dropbox. They name him. In question, said that Martin and Mrs. Oswald always seemed to be together whenever she was around the suite. WFT1 stated that he had no further information in this respect. He did mention that Martin was quite attentive to her child, June, while they were at the hotel, but thought part of this was for publicity effect. Interesting. WFT1 said that he had received no complaints whatsoever pertaining to Mrs. Oswald's stay at the hotel. I guess she didn't trash the place.
They didn't make her enough.
Only the sheets, maybe. Yeah. He said that a complaint of any nature. He said that a complaint of any nature would have brought immediately to his attention. Yeah. So, yeah, it's crazy they have informants at the Willard Hotel, right? So I think this is my last one, and this is the famous Richard Nixon story. And Rob, I recently saw a video on X where Nixon was describing his relationship with Kennedy, and it was a very good one. I mean, he was invited to Kennedy's wedding. I don't know if he went or not. And although they ran against each other in 1960, I think it was, or 59, 60, something like that. they were very respectful of each other. And I watched this, and maybe we'll play it on members only because I don't want to get dinged, although it's just an interview. It's from the Nixon Library. It seemed that they were very fond of each other. So I don't know why Lee would want to shoot Nixon, but let's read this. For your added information, during our interview with Robert Oswald, he advised that on January 13th, 64, so this is way before the Warren Commission, almost about a month when they left, or maybe 3 weeks, James Herbert Martin told him that Marina had told Martin that when Richard Nixon visited Dallas, date not indicated, Marina learned that Lee intended to shoot Nixon. Again, this seems like another Walker type of thing. Marina reportedly locked Lee Harvey Oswald in the bathroom all day to prevent him from doing so. And of course, the problem with this is, how do you lock a bathroom door from the outside?
Yeah.
Robert Oswald added that Marina related the same story to him on January 13th, 64, when they made a trip to the cemetery to visit the grave of Lee Harvey Oswald. Hearsay. Robert Oswald stated he does not know where Lee and Marina were living at the time of the alleged intention of Lee to shoot Nixon, and he does not know the date of such incident, but vaguely recalled that Nixon reportedly planned to visit Dallas during the summer or early fall of 1963. I don't even know if Lee would have been there. Definitely not in the summer, depending when in the early fall. Robert also does not recall Marina stating how she knew Lee Harvey Oswald planned to shoot Nixon. So this is, a crazy story. I've never put any credence to it, if you will. We could stop sharing this now, Rob. And bunch of drama going on. What's going on with Robert, bro? He's like on some other shit.
He is on some other shit. But he's always been on some other shit. So,
Yeah.
I mean, not surprising. Not surprising. And just to reiterate another thing, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Let me slide this over. So I got an FBI document from June 21st, 67. Okay. And of course, this has to do with James Herbert Martin and something that he told the FBI on June 20th, 1967. Now, the document says approximately 1.5 years ago. So from 67, 1.5 years ago, that would be like the middle of 65 or the beginning of 65. Yeah, from June 60. Yeah, the beginning of 65. So January 65. That he had been in St. Petersburg, Florida, attempting to obtain employment in the hotel restaurant management field, which does lend credence to the theory that Martin and his wife had separated at some point. Okay, if she left him and went to Europe to work as a wire intercept, and James Herbert Martin had been through the ringer at this point, his wife's left him. He moves to Florida to find a job. Like things aren't going well in Dallas anymore for him, type of thing. Maybe he can't afford to live where he was living. I don't know. But this is some interesting information here. So, approximately 1.5 years ago, James Herbert Martin had been in the St. Petersburg, Florida area attempting to obtain employment in the hotel restaurant management field. At this time, a white male, first name unknown, Lindquist, employed in the management business at the Sheraton Outrigger Hotel, U.S. Highway 19, South St. Petersburg, Florida, would not even consider employing Martin because he was the individual who was the business manager for Marina Oswald. Martin had been the manager of the Inn of Six Flags, Dallas, Texas at the time, blah, blah, blah. Lindquist refused to employ him or consider him as the motel did not want the adverse publicity which accompanied Martin. Martin was unable to obtain employment in the hotel restaurant management field, and he is believed to have obtained employment with Sears and Roebuck Company department store in St. Petersburg, Florida. Oh, how the mighty have fallen, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
And on June 15th, he once again attempted to obtain employment in the hotel management business. On this date, he made information available to the source that on November 22nd, that he'd been the manager of the Inn at Six Flags when Kennedy was assassinated, blah, 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 blah. Now, what he tells the FBI here, he says Secret Service agents had contacted him and asked for a suite of rooms to be used on a confidential basis to accommodate Marina, her mother-in-law, and Lee Oswald's brother, as well as representatives of the Secret Service. That's a lie. He's the one that reached out to the sheriff and got him to reach out to the Secret Service to bring the Oswalds to him. Okay.
Yep. Sergeant Evans. Yeah.
So why is he lying here about that? He says the group moved from the motel after one of the government agents informed Marina that Marina's location had been determined by another government agency and they would have to move her. The government agents had already conducted a background investigation on him and propositioned him, again, to allow Marina and her 2 children to live with him in his home. Again, this makes no sense. Okay. He was additionally propositioned to being Marina Oswald's business manager, and he accepted on a basis he would perform these duties as long as she lived with him. Okay, so now he's saying that they propositioned him to become her business manager. So that's the second lie he's telling. Marina Oswald and her 2 children took up residence with him and his family and operated as her business manager in preparing contracts with magazines, newspapers, periodicals, arranged for interviews and press releases. He indicated money came in initially at the rate of $50,000 a week from public donors. That is a fuck ton of money, bro. That's like $5 million a week. She resided with him for a period of 3 months, and during the time she was at the house, government agents posed as attorneys, developers, lawn care, who were associates of Martin. During press conferences, Marina would not answer questions of reporters without an interpreter, and generally would answer the questions in Russian. She was presented as a considerate mother who cared for her children and was bereaved by the loss of her husband. After meetings with the press, when she would be alone with Martin's family, perk your ears up, folks, she would always chastise the stupid Americans. Marina Oswald, as I've always said on this show for the longest time, Marina Oswald consumed large amounts of vodka and spoke very fluent English. Shocker. She spoke fluent English, folks. She was presenting. Okay. After meetings, she constantly claimed that she had knowledge of the most important officials of the Soviet Union, and when living in Russia, she had complete access to all government facilities. Allegedly, this is what she's telling Martin. Let's see. She made statements she knew about the assassination before it occurred, indicating foreknowledge that maybe Oswald told her what he was planning on doing. That's not a good look. That she was part of the Communist Party and could have prevented the assassination had she desired. Mrs. Martin maintained a diary and took down exhaustive notes concerning all statements and comments made by Marina Oswald during the time she lived with them. Okay? Gee, does that sound like something that a CIA agent would do, Joe?
It does.
Yeah. She said Mrs. Martin was doing it because she intended to write a book in the future. That was the excuse.
I wish she had.
No shit. Martin allegedly knew Jack Ruby, the man who killed Lee Harvey Oswald, through a motel and restaurant associations in Texas.
Yes, he admitted this during his Warren Commission testimony, as they were both in the club business when Mr. Martin managed the Gay 90s Club for about a month.
Martin allegedly has made statements that the prosecuting attorney Garrison in New Orleans, Louisiana, was right in his investigation of Shaw, and that Shaw was guilty of a conspiracy to kill President Kennedy, along with 15 other individuals, and the conspiracy was instituted in the city of Atlanta, Georgia. Hello, Mr. Miltier. Martin allegedly professed knowledge that on the night of November 21st, 1963, that is the night before the assassination, a man made 2 phone calls from Atlanta, Georgia to Dallas, Texas. One of the calls was made to the residence of Lee Oswald, which would have been the Paynes, which is where he was on the night of the 21st.
Right.
One of the calls was made to the residence of the Paynes, followed by a second call to the private unlisted number of Jack Ruby. In placing the call, the man informed the long-distance operator, "Mark this short conversation. It will make history." Upon completing the call, he stated, "Everything is set." The second call, which was made to Ruby's private unlisted phone, consisted only of the statement by the caller of, quote, "If anything goes wrong, you know what to do," unquote. Martin determined these calls had been made to an engineer who had a wife who knew the long-distance operator who had made these calls. Martin allegedly had furnished this information to the FBI at Dallas, who had discounted the claims at the time. Allegedly. Martin allegedly has made statements that President Lyndon Johnson was aware of the many problems that Kennedy faced in Texas and of the numerous problems that Kennedy had been caused by members of the criminal syndicates. Martin professed President Kennedy had been trying to clean up a dirty mess in organized crime. Martin professed to have a cousin or uncle in a criminal crime syndicate, in the mafia, Joe.
Wow.
Martin professed he had a friend that knew President Johnson when he started out in politics. This individual claims that Johnson, early in his career, stated that he would become president of the United States. The same friend allegedly had stolen a secret ballot box stolen at the Democratic National Convention, at which President Kennedy was nominated for the presidency of the United States. Johnson allegedly knows what was in the box and who has it, and if the contents of same were known, it would greatly embarrass him. Martin professes that since President Kennedy's death, there have been no problems for the crime syndicate, President Johnson, or the Cosa Nostra. Martin indicated that the assassination of Kennedy was to have included Connally, but at the last minute, someone had decided that Connally would be spared. Martin professed that a photograph of the presidential car, which was presented to the Warren Commission displaying a bullet hole on the right side of the windshield, indicating a shot had entered from the front, and that this testimony had been explained away as not actually being a bullet hole, but only as being a bug on the windshield. He allegedly testified before the Warren Commission, and at that time had not yet divulged the true nature of Marina Oswald concerning her proficiency in English, her drinking heavily of vodka, and her extensive knowledge of Russian political matters. As business manager for Marina, he was to have obtained 10% of her income. A Dallas attorney by the name of Thorne was to obtain 5% of her income, and Lee Oswald's brother was to obtain 10% of her income. Marina moved from his residence after 3 months after a disagreement with Lee Oswald's brother, who wanted all 25% involved in administering Marina Oswald's accounts. So now he's saying that Robert Oswald's the one that fucked all this up, right? And that Robert Oswald was greedy and wanted him and Thorne out of the picture, and he wanted to make the entire 25%. Additionally, Oswald's brother claimed that all contracts and papers which had been completed when Martin was her business manager had been completed by Marina when she was under sedation. After she left his home, he filed a suit for $12,500 for use of his home during the 3-month period by Marina and her children, and he received this money in a settlement out of court. Marina, according to Martin, now runs a restaurant in Dallas, Texas, entitled Eat Me Here. No, I'm joking. The following is a description and resume of James Herbert Martin. And then they give a rundown of this whole thing. And he said he has never heard of the result of the information he testified to concerning information told to him by a resident manager of the Dinkler Plaza Hotel in Atlanta, Georgia, while in the gay 90s, a private club in Dallas where Martin had formerly associated in December of 63. The maintenance man at the Dinkler Plaza Hotel reportedly went to the resident manager with a problem, and that the maintenance man's wife was a long-distance operator with a telephone company in Atlanta, and it's not known whether she was an employee of any hotel or not, and it's just this fucking long, drawn-out story about these calls to supposedly Lee Oswald, and the female operator overheard them, and the call placed to Jack Ruby, and the female operator overheard him, allegedly telling Ruby, you know what to do if anything goes wrong. So I don't know what he's trying to do here. Says here, Mr. Martin thereupon related he had testified about Marina to the effect she told his wife and himself various things on occasions, all of which had no bearing on the assassination, yet Marina could speak English when she wanted to, because she could hold conversations in broken English when she wanted to as well. So she was faking a lot of this broken English bullshit she was doing during some interviews. And it just goes on and on and on about all kinds of stuff. So the question for me becomes, why in 1967 or early 65 is James Herbert Martin going to the FBI about all this, or that they are, and I think the answer is, of course, the Garrison investigation at this point. Because it says here in part of this, concerning the recent New Orleans publicity of a conspiracy involved in the assassination, Mr. Martin stated he has never personally known Jim Garrison or Clay Shaw, and he has no knowledge of any conspiracy, with the exception that he still had an unknown feeling and unknown final knowledge as to the above referred to phone calls from Atlanta to Dallas. He went on to say that during the first 2 days he had been contacted by the Secret Service in his hotel in Dallas. It had been mentioned by the Secret Service that they suspected a plot involving 15 to 20 people. They mentioned some car had followed them on an occasion, and they contacted the local police to stop the car, which they did, and they found a man with a rifle, but the man was not wearing hunting clothes at all. Nothing further was ever said about any plot, and he never heard anything further until he read of the New Orleans allegations. Concerning a photograph, Mr. Martin stated that during the first 2 days after the assassination, he was in contact with the Secret Service, and they showed him a photograph, an 8x10, about which he would swear up and down showed a bullet hole in the windshield. He said he knew nothing further about all this, but the coincidences he mentioned, he tended to confuse them with the idea more than Lee Oswald was involved. And he goes on here to deny. I said he had no knowledge as to President Kennedy's trip to Dallas, but a friend of his in the past, a Mary, redacted, in her 50s, who was married to a man who has a small insurance and hospitalization business in Dallas, who drove a green Lincoln in 65, who had worked for McKinney, a Texas newspaper, as a reporter many years ago, name and address not recalled, told him sometime in 65 that she had a date one time many years ago, and she attended with such a date a political campaign meeting in Texas of now President Johnson. And again, I don't know what all this has to do with anything whatsoever.
Right.
And
No,
again,
my guess is just doing their due diligence in case maybe Garrison reached out to them, but this was way earlier, right? So I don't know.
It's dated 67, so it's about right. When asked if there was anything whatsoever he knew that he had not been asked up to now, again, this is a transcript of an FBI interview with him. So Mr. Martin responded by stating that Marina Oswald had remarked on an occasion when in his home that when she first heard of the assassination, she had run out to the garage, apparently wherever she had been living at such a time, because she wanted to see if Oswald's rifle was there. The rifle supposedly was wrapped in a blanket, and Marina remarked she said she thought it was there in the blanket. She never said anything further about the matter, and he had no further knowledge of such event. Mr. Martin was thereupon asked about his wife's diary, and he stated, quote, "I have seen it. It is yellow. It is hers. I have never read it nor looked through it." Mr. Martin stated he was positive there would be nothing in it that had not been told. Okay. He said his wife never kept the diary up as actually a diary chronological event of their conversations and personal knowledge, and that it was only notes that his wife made whenever she got around to it or had some spare time to jot something down. He said he's never read it, but he's been told that it was mostly his wife's emotional feelings on a personal basis that she had recorded, noting in the beginning of their associations with the Oswalds in their home. His wife had liked Mrs. Oswald, but later she was very much disliked. I believe that's the understatement of the year. Martin related he had still not obtained hotel employment, blah, 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 blah. Right?
Yeah.
Again, the reason that I think that they were separated at this time, Joe, is he makes no mention of his kids, no mention of his wife, and that he's now in St. Petersburg, Florida, looking for a job, and he can't get one, and he's bitter.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. You don't look for a job if you live in Texas and in Florida. Go to Florida to look for a job if there's not something wrong, right? Maybe it didn't officially happen until the mid to late 70s, but yeah, definitely seems like it.
So the whole point being, is it possible? Is it possible that this CIA document that has Mrs. James H. Martin on it, with her being employed as a wire intercept for the CIA in 1964, could it be her? Yeah, it could be her. And that's the point we're making.
Especially if you think of the title on the third page of it, engaged to contract agent.
Not your typical wife, right?
Mm-hmm. That's how it starts.
So, I mean, when you put that up against everything else that's supposedly happened, from them being followed back from Russia on the HS or the SS Mazdam by the Martins, Martin lying about who orchestrated the stay at the Six Flags Inn to the FBI. He didn't say it was me, but it was definitely him.
Yeah, and they knew that too. By the way, yeah, I'm sure.
Not to mention all the other fuckery that's going around all of this. When you put it under that lens of conspiracy and the fact that, a lot of people think that, hey, Ruth Payne was kind of babysitting Marina Oswald. Before that, you have the DeMoran Shields kind of babysitting the Oswalds, right, for a short time. And of course, you would want another one after this incident happens. You have, it can't just keep being Ruth, at this time. It has to be somebody else. And, if they had used them before to surveil the Oswalds back to Texas, and they were still in place in Texas at the time of the assassination going down, then they could have been activated again to say, hey, here's what we need you to do. You need to keep a close eye on them, write down everything this bitch says, type of thing. Try to get any information you can, get as close to her as you can, gain her confidence, make her fall in love with you, give her the D, however you got to do it. We need to stay close to the situation and find out information. And, we all have our own ways of trying to find out information, His was to try to slay his way in. And again, this is 1967. He's given a whole different picture version of Marina, right? One that is constantly drunk, right? One that has been lying about being fluent in English, bragging about political contacts in Russia, bragging about being a communist, bragging about knowing about the assassination beforehand, bragging that she could have stopped it but chose not to, type of thing. Is it all horse shit? Maybe. Is there some truth there? Maybe. That's the interesting part.
Definitely. If I just had to guess, and I would say there's some truth to it, there's some bullshit to it. I think the foreknowledge part is a little bit of a stretch, but you never know. I mean, you know.
Yeah, and I'm pulling up this picture here just to show everybody that we're not. It might sound like a crazy premise on the surface, right? And it does.
It does.
It does. But, you know, when you start taking everything in the totality, right? Not looking at everything individually. Individually, all of these things seem batshit crazy. But when you start taking, you're finding more and more and more things that point to certain things and other things that point to certain things. Like for instance, I'm gonna get I'm trying to find the Mazdam manifest picture. Do you have that handy, Joe?
The picture of allegedly him on the boat.
Here, I got it. Hold on, I got it down.
I do have it in my folder here, but if you got it, you're good.
Well, if you got it, pop.
All right, hold on. Give me a second.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, real quick, here is the Mazdam.
There you go.
Manifest. And I know it's small, but this is the boat that Oswald and Marina came back from Amsterdam to New York on, and highlighted here at the bottom. Okay. Martin J.H. Right? 4 and 1.
Yep.
Three children.
3 children and his wife.
Yep. And probably 2 older kids and a baby, right? It's, for fair consideration, whatever.
Yeah, and there is the fair that is crossed out and
changed a little bit.
Yes.
And then let's see. We have this. The picture on the left, okay, is from a SS Mazdam website, which has pictures of the cruise that Oswald was on. It shows pictures of Oswald eating in the cafeteria at lunchtime. Blah blah blah.
Well,
this character on the left, all right, was in one of the pictures, and I'll be goddamn if it don't look like James Herbert Martin chilling on the deck in a chair with sunglasses on, with a shit-eating grin on his face, loving life. There's nothing here that screams it's not him. The nose appears the same. The ears appear the same. The lips appear the same. The chin appears the same. The hairstyle appears the same.
Yep.
I mean, there's nothing on here that screams this ain't him.
Right. And the one on the right might look like, say, he's lost a little on his hairline, but you have to think what he's been through in the last 2 years, right? You could see that being or just the hairstyle. But you could see maybe it's combed back more, and he doesn't have any gel on it.
He is on the deck of a ship in the middle of the ocean with the wind blowing, so, but you see how there's a little bit of a fade over his ear that runs from his temple over his ear towards the back of his head, where it's like a shorter than the rest of it.
Yeah.
And it appears on the right that he still has that same kind of cut, right? I don't know. To me, this is fucking James Herbert Martin on the SS Mazdan, right? I'll die on that hill. You may not agree, but I'll die on that hill. Now this one, right? This is a FBI document from November 30th, 1963, concerning Marina and the detail and James Herbert Martin and all of that jazz. And they're talking about him being the general manager of the Inn at Six Flags. Jim Martin is a resident manager at the Inn of Six Flags. Mr. Brown took over as manager on June 15th, 63. And he said that Martin had previously been with the Statler Hilton in Dallas as credit manager and subsequently had worked with the Carte Blanche credit card company. Okay. So when he was working at the Statler Hilton in Dallas, this was in the 50s, right? Like 57, 58. And then subsequently, the Carte Blanche credit card company, which was a Hilton-owned credit card, right? Which is a perfect cover to go overseas and, sell this credit card to exclusive people. And if you think for a second, folks, we try to make this point back then too as well, that the CIA would likely have had a good relationship with big hotel companies, especially abroad and in Europe and stuff like that, because they would want to know who is visiting where. Hell, they might have even had the rooms bugged type of thing. But, that's intelligence. If you know that, some guy you're watching from Russia just traveled to Helsinki and so-and-so is meeting him in his hotel room. I mean, that's intelligence, right? So the CIA likely has a nice hand-in-hand relationship with the Hilton Hotel Company, right? Where they share intelligence.
Yeah, Rob, if you want to put that up,
Yep.
this is what we worked on initially, and there is a gap that really coincides with Lee's. Well, I mean, pretty close with Lee's time in Russia, and the dates when he worked with the Jack Murphy Insurance Company, and that's a whole nother thing. Go back to our first episode that talks about the shadiness with him. He was a mayor or something, or a corrupt executive or something. He doesn't really pop up until 1962, allegedly. This is the best we had at the time.
Those dates there for 62, I think, are off. I mean,
Yeah,
that one we just showed stated it, and I don't know when the Oswalds came back. I know it was in June.
it was June.
But
Yeah.
June 15th that he became the manager of the Six Flags Inn. And I don't know when he was manager of the gay 90s. I definitely wasn't I don't think in May of 62, because they couldn't get on the Mastam at that point.
Yeah, and I believe it was only for a month. And again, this is a few years old, and we found more documents since. So, but the point is, there is a big gap.
Yep, big gap during the time that Oswald is in Russia, where we don't know exactly where.
Oh, take that off.
We don't know exactly where he was. We know he was working for the Carte Blanche credit card, Hilton, but
Right.
we don't know where.
Right.
And possibly in Europe, it makes sense if it was in Europe somewhere. So
Southwest says, I love this Martin-ish. Yeah, man. That's I figured it'd be appropriate for my little hiatus to come back and talk Martin. Um,
Yep, Sally, 2 years. And again, the length of it, if it's blowing around, if it's longer, I'm not too worried about the hairline. Because I mean,
yeah,
it's pretty much the same shape. The hairline, it's just receded a lot, a little bit
Mhm.
in 2 years' time.
Yeah, and with the stress of what he was dealing with at that time, it's not out of the question type of thing, you know?
Yeah, I'll put it back up. I mean, you can see on the left, it's already receding back on his temple for sure by this point. And it's kind of coiffed there in front, maybe a little bouffant type thing where he had more hair up front there than he does in 2 years' time, where he's combing it straight back. I don't know, but again, there's nothing to me that says that this is not him.
Yeah, like I said, with pictures, it's tricky always, right? Talk
Yeah,
about delete plausible pictures, but I don't rule it out.
it's awful goddamn funny that on this trip with the manifest, with the Oswalds on the boat, the picture of this motherfucker that looks just like James Herbert Martin. Just saying,
Yeah,
it's too much of a coincidence. Too much.
yeah. When you consider everything else, yeah,
Yeah, considering everything in its totality. Like I said, you take this individually, you may dismiss it. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Well, it could be a coincidence that somebody else named J.H. Martin with the family of 5 was on the Mazdam manifest. Sure, that's a coincidence. Yeah, okay.
hmm
That's a coincidence that James Herbert Martin, coordinates the Oswald's coming to his thing. Well, it's suspicious, but in the totality of everything that happened, how it happened, what we have, what we know now, to me, it's suspect as hell. To me, it's clear as a bell. Okay. These folks were working with the CIA. I mean, the name's right there on the CIA document, Mrs. James H. Martin. And trust me, we've looked through a lot of CIA employees named James H. Martin, and none of them match except this dude.
yeah, yep. There was the researcher you mentioned earlier was like, whoa, there was a James Hyman Martin, and we found his obit, and he was married to the love of his life his whole life. So we're like, no, that's not him. He tried to debunk it, and of course, he didn't respond. So,
Yeah. So unless
um,
there was a better answer than James Herbert Martin, we got to go with what we got. And he's suspect as hell. What he did was suspect as hell, given his history and the whole Wanda thing. It all makes sense that she would want to separate herself from this dude, do her own thing. Well, what's she gonna do? Go back to doing the same thing she was doing before, right?
yeah,
While he's out selling his credit card at the Hilton, she's home with the kids, or while the kids are at school, she's monitoring wire intercepts. And then they're a big happy family. And, everybody comes home for dinner. She cooks dinner, and life goes on. And he goes to work, and the kids go to school, and she does some wire intercept work, in her spare time. And then, oh shit, they get the call. The Oswalds are leaving Russia. Get some tickets now. Get on the SS Mass. It's time to go back, type of thing. I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
It makes sense to me, but what the
It
hell do
does
I
to
know?
me. Yeah. What the hell do any of us know in this crazy case, right? But yeah, I been looking forward to kind of rehash some of this, and I thought it was very informative. I think a lot of the people liked it based on the comments here I've been seeing.
Yep, yep. All right, folks. That's a pod. We're 2 hours in. Thank you guys for hanging out and all your wonderful comments. And we'll be back next Wednesday night for members only to go a little deeper into all this as well. And on that note, grab the damn dog, Joe. There she is.
There you are.
Ruby!
Ruby! You're an international sensation.
For the record, but, he said, come to Bourbon Street and I'll show you what I think of the case.
Shit. What? I'm trying to add you. Hold on.
The greatest lies are told in the name of truth. The greatest crimes are committed in the name of justice. The quotation is Jim Garrison's. It could be used for him or against him in this strange case. Good night.
There we go. All right, folks. We'll see you next Wednesday. In the meantime, peace. We out. See ya.
Peace. Good to be back, everyone.